The name of the show is called Umkhosi Wenala. Umkhosi Inala means abundance. This place that we are talking about is a place of abundance, but then people are taken away from that abundance. They can't access that abundance. It's taken by the outside forces. And they are enjoying it, while the people who are born in the land are starving.
As academics, we take it for granted that when we talk about conservation, politics, these big concepts, we assume that people are just going to grasp what we're talking about. I realized that, it's really important to try and find a language that one can use to actually be in conversation with local peoples. So the play is actually one way of doing that. For me, it's a form of art, but it's also a form of research that's going to help people in the local area think more critically about how to engage with these issues.
Using arts in a place like this is actually very good because it does bridge the gap between the knowledge that has been lost long time ago, indigenous knowledge of people, how they've been living with environment, protecting nature, speaking to nature, nature speaking to them.
In isiZulu, the word conservation doesn't really exist. Historically, people never felt that they needed to conserve nature. A lot of political ecology literature talks about this idea of conservation as having emerged in the industrial period where humans wanted to create sanctuaries of nature to escape to, which then became nature reserves. But in many parts of the global south, people have never seen this separation between humans and nature. It's about them understanding nature and their feeling that nature also understands them. So this is one of the aspects that appears in the play, which I think is so powerful because it represents how many people in coastal areas in South Africa see their relationship to nature, and also in many parts of the global south as well.
She's home! Ungani? Ugogo ubuyile!
Back in 2019, we hosted Amphitheater in Bazwana Art Center. Boom, there was Mpumi there, a friend of mine. They were performing a show called Lalela Ulwandle. Our relationship grew from there, looking at their methodologies, which is research-based, linking artists with academics, the local people.
This play is about the history of this place. Research over the 18 months that we've been working together with Bazwana Arts Center. Sathatha abantwana ukuthi abenze research, get stories to understand history.
In one of our first workshops, we actually drew a timeline and also participatory maps of the coast to try and understand how resource use and access over time has worked, and also just to locate everybody in the group to see what are the histories that everybody holds and that are actually important for their own personal connection to the land. So it was quite fascinating because I've done a lot of research in the area. I was able to inject a lot of that into the stories that people had.
I like when it fuses those two worlds, the academic experience and research and information, and also people as they experience these issues on the ground on a daily basis. So one of the tools that was used is when these artists went to elderly people of the village and asking these stories. How was it back then? How is it now? What are your aspirations for the future, problems and stuff like that? So all that comes back to the play.
A lot of the knowledge holders on the coast are older people. It's quite normal that if you're doing research, you're going to be engaging with them the most. But with the amphitheater project, it's been quite fascinating to actually engage with the younger people. Also to just see them grasp a lot of this work and actually turning it into art has just been so powerful.
The project has been amazing. I mean, as a person, there are a lot of things that I didn't know, especially about the sea culture and the whole ancestors thing. But having to go deep, I could say somewhere, somehow, I've discovered myself and my identity along the way. So I'm very grateful for this amazing experience.
We are in a place whereby a lot of people don't have a voice. It's a society which does not really recognize the voice of young people.
We need young people to be included in decision making. We as elders are living. We can't just leave a mess for our kids. We need to be the leaders who are a good example to our kids.
It's been quite fascinating for me to see that there's still a very strong youth collective that is very invested in actually reviving and maintaining and harnessing some of those histories of the local area and actually carrying them forward through art.
I see the vision of Umkhosi. It is a place I don't ever want to visit. It was like a big sky forming above the waves.
If the older generation dies out, then no one is actually going to be fighting for the historical livelihoods of people in the area. And a lot of the indigenous and local knowledge is actually going to be lost. So it's really inspiring to see that there is a youth that is really willing to actually maintain some of those customs and traditions that local people have.
I remember when I started writing and I knew that I was going to be performing in this place, so I had to go down to the ocean. It was very scary. I had to go do some ritual there to ask my ancestors to bless me and to guide me through. When I came back, everything was in sync. This has been an eye-opener to me, and I know that the young people in this area, when they see this play, they're going to be inspired to know that their voice needs to be heard and not to shy away from being vocal in everything that is happening and making sure that the community knows that we, the young people, we know what's happening.
As long as customary rights of people and customary structures that are actually accountable to wider communities, as long as those structures are ignored in decision-making processes about conservation, there's always going to be this conflict between conservation and local and indigenous people.
As empathy theatre, sizama ucreate i-empathy ukuthi abantu bazwelane. Kusukela kuma-tribal authorities, kusukela kubantu be-environment, kusukela kuma-scientists, the community at large. These groups who are conflicted. We are trying to make them come together and listen. By listening, people will start thinking about the way forward and how to resolve the issues that they're having.
Our lake has been turned into a tool and used against us. A weapon to kill our own village.
The setting is within a fictional world, but it pretty much represents some of these issues that I and my colleagues have been speaking about.
Ama-issues esidila nawo ama-issues of forced removal babantu besuswa ey'ndaweni zabo next to the ocean, bemuvwa inland because kufuna ukuthi kwakhiwe that natural park, indaba ye-fence, indaba yokuthi abantu they can't get to the wetlands where they used to plow.
But the time has come for you to leave your village. I know! To get off from all these lands.
People being moved, trying to come back to reclaim their land, but they told, you must go away. It's the beach also, people who were thrown out from living beside the sea, who were using the sea for multi-purposes, they were using it for fishing. Their livelihoods depended on the sea. That's what they knew. But now, people being moved to inland, where they have to rethink on how are we going to work with this soil.
Because it's in the Zulu language, it actually captures the essence of what are some of these issues.
Also learning about our history as Black Africans, because some of the things are not being taught at school. And the land issue, we are obsessed about it, but we do not know the real history of what happened to the land, why people do want the land back. I'm very grateful.
So it's not only about people expressing themselves, but it is also for job opportunities. We are in a place which is a World Heritage Site. So There are a lot of policies and laws that really prohibits industries that could come with job opportunities. So having amphitheater in the space and working with them, this is actually creating job opportunities, but at the same time creating a safe space where young people can actually voice out the issues that concerns them or start a conversation with the community. Most of our props, these are things that were collected from the community. The big, beautiful map that we're using, local people expose their talent, the aeroplanes which are made out of wood, silicon, to see visually the silicon that is made out of nets and all other natural resources. I think it's really amazing. It is actually empowering the local people that have talent but who don't have a space to show their talent. I had an opportunity to play Kosana. Okay, he's a twin. He's a twin with a sister. They both share different perspectives in terms of development. Kosana believes that things should be done in a certain way, and my sister also believes that things should be done in a certain way. So there's a conflict there, which is a beautiful conflict. So Makosazana believes that more nature should be conserved so that there'll be more for the future. But Nkosana is like saying, yeah, we want to be part of this, we want to bring roads, we want to bring this and that, and it's very exciting.
So what? Yes. So what? That's why I took the stone. That's why I sold it to that Mr. Gilvilliers from Infinity Hotel. So what? I've always put my effort here to build. Look at the town of Israel. Look at the town of Israel. The streets, the roads and everything. See.
I remember the rehearsal just almost being in tears because a lot of research is just shelved into theses and papers that no one actually ever reads. So to be able to see some of the work that I've contributed to actually being played out in the play and to see the emotion and the music and all of it come together to tell this powerful story. I think as a researcher, there's just nothing more fulfilling than that. To be able to see how the amphitheater projects can actually carry forward this work and actually bring in new insights as well.
You know, when you have a meeting, people in this place would not participate in the meeting and voice out their concerns. But when you go out of the meeting, that's when big conversations start. So now the play is designed in a way that it makes everyone comfortable to start a conversation that will actually go from young people to elderly people. It's a very safe space. In a rural place, you'll find that people really don't talk much, but this play itself, it's a very exciting play that brings people together, sit around the circle, like you will sit around the fire and tell stories and stuff like that. So there's a conversation that goes on there.
As the amphitheater, Sizama Uguti, at the end of the production, actually, to have a discussion, to facilitate a discussion or a debate amongst maybe the people who have been moved and the people who moved other people, to understand how people are dealing with these issues and the challenges that they are facing. So that's what we are trying to facilitate by doing this production, is to paint a picture of what is happening and how people are feeling.
It's very exciting to see young people, after being taken through a research program, story development, standing up confidently, interrogating issues and responding to various issues, which they will probably in their homes and spaces will never get an opportunity to stand tall in front of elderly people, Izinduna, Umkhosi, politicians and stuff like that. We really hope that this play could be taken along the coast where there are traditional authorities, where there are politicians, where there are municipalities and various government departments. More than anything, decision makers.
I think the goal of the play is a very strategic one, not just for this community, but for many parts of the Global South and for many other areas in South Africa and in the continent, because it's the first of its kind that I've ever seen. I think it's a very creative way to portray some very sensitive and very political issues. I see a lot of people on the coast in South Africa relating to this play and wanting to use it for their own areas to challenge some of the decision-making processes. I also see the play also speaking to decision makers who are far removed from what is happening on the ground, because a lot of decisions about conservation happen centrally, and a lot of the officials have no clue about what these rules mean for day-to-day activities for people on the ground.
We are trying to get the message to the right people, to those people who really, really needs to hear it.
Working with Impact Theatre really gave us an opportunity to expose a lot of talent that is seated in rural areas. We all know that a lot of funding goes to big cities which are already developed. In rural areas, you really hardly find big productions, films, theatre. You don't find that. And that's where you get real stories. That's where you get raw, natural talent.
I really think that this play is really going to break new ground in terms of how research is communicated, in terms of empowering local people, and also in terms of holding authorities accountable. Because I feel like this kind of medium can reach many audiences all over the world. And I think it's just really powerful. And I think we need more of these kinds of productions.